I'm delighted to be here with Sabrina Mahfouz, and last time we worked together was in Palestine 3 years ago, when Sabrina was taking part in the Palfest Literature Festival, and also giving workshops to young Palestinian men and women in places like Hebron and Nablus and Ramallah. Which was a very exciting experience for me, and you've done several Palfest trips, I think. In an era when few young writers confine themselves to one genre, Sabrina is still exceptional. As you've heard already today, she's a poet, a playwright, and a performer. She writes for radio, TV, film, children, opera. She collaborates with musicians, dancers, other poets, other writers, and much more besides. Her many plays include Chef, for which she won an Edinburgh Fringe First Award in 2014, and Offside, which we hope we'll talk a bit more about, as well as being mentioned earlier, about women's football. Her poetry includes the collection How You Might Know Me, inspired by workshops with women working in the sex industry, and she's an admired spoken word poet. Last year, she also published an anthology of writing by female Muslim writers, The Things I Would Tell You, which received a lot of coverage in the context of attacks in the UK. Much of her work is engaged with social and political issues, and she works with children and adults in many different communities, often those with voices that are rarely heard. She's received many awards and other forms of recognition, including being selected, I gather, as a global shaper by the World Economic Forum. She's British Egyptian, of which perhaps more later. She's going to read or perform for a while for us. Then we'll have a brief discussion. I think Sabrina may read some more, and then there'll be time for question and answers. So I'll hand over to Sabrina Mahfouz. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for making it this far. So it's really exciting to be at the podium where I have seen all the wonderful writers that I was invited here alongside. So as everyone else has mentioned, it really is a great honour. And whenever you do these things, everyone's always like surprised that they're here. I don't think that ever goes away, really. Nobody ever really expects to be a writer doing it as an actual career. So it's always good. Anyway, I'm going to, because of what we were talking about earlier, I'm going to kind of do a sequence of readings to show a little bit about my journey of characterization in the sex industry world. I have written a lot of stuff that doesn't have to do with sex and sexuality as well, but I'm just going to try and keep it within that theme. So I'm going to read an extract from my first play, Dry Ice, which I wrote in 2011, and it was a solo show that I was in, and I've chosen a section where there's like quite a few characters, so I'm going to do some accents, and some of them are really dodgy, and I think Paul has left, which is good, because one of them is an Irish accent, which is particularly dodgy. So just forgive those things, and you know, just it's there for the matter of differentiation rather than accuracy. So this play is about Nina, who is a stripper. And throughout the play, we've kind of been hearing about her experiences and her life in general, not just in the strip club, but outside. And this is the end. Changing room cheer, the best part of the night, as long as there's no newbie itching for a cat fight to protect their pitch. I file my nails and collect tales for mine and P's next dinner date. Existentialist conversationalist Maria is one of my favourites. Still here after 8 years, but with a never-ending stream of information about why you shouldn't be. Reams of facts and figures about strippers who've never married, who've carried their secrets to the grave and not had a solitary tear shed at their funeral. Anecdotes about coke fiend friends whose noses have exploded on stage and they've been billed for the cleaning. She always sits legs apart in cream lace, arched eyebrows so far apart her face seems to take up miles of space, and she never shouts, smokes a lot. Her voice has got that gorgeous husk that's sent to those on 20 a day, and she's posh. Not loads, but more than most of us here. All the new girls fear her, say they see her as an evil stepmother type who doesn't like their youth and their nubile figures, but the reality is they're the ones who don't like the truth that threatens to burst out of her 1940s made-up mouth at any given second. It's like she's constantly checking round corners and peering over doors for the moment someone falls and then bam, hits them with it. She just did it now. One of the new girls who started last month was acting all tough, shouting about how some new tighter legislation over strip clubs was rubbish. Can't they see there's not a thing wrong with what we do? I mean, bloody hell, it's a free choice, it's a free country, isn't it? I feel like stabbing them in the eye with my stiletto, get them to see. And Maria pipes up from behind a feather boa. To see what, dear? How free we are? You mean in here or just generally? A short sentence, innocent sounding enough. But there's something about Maria's rhetoric that gets stuck in your throat and doesn't let go. But Ozzy let it go and went back on stage after her hair got sprayed. Now, old-timer Tanya puts down the straighteners, says to Maria, why have you got to be such a horrible bitch? Maria doesn't even flinch. Oh, do shut up, Tanya. You're just put out because the word's got about that you got caught getting fingered in booth number 2. But I don't judge. We do what we have to do when you get to our age, don't we? Tanya stands behind Maria's chair so they can both see the other in the same mirror. Bulbs all blown in the lights around it, and I'm looking deep down inside my makeup bag like I'm not even listening. Tanya bends down to flick Maria's jewelled earring. Thing is, I didn't even do it for the money. Truth be told, I let him do it because I was bored. See, I'd rather be a whore at least than I get some action. I know you get plenty of satisfaction from thinking I'm embarrassed, but that night in booth number 2, I came twice. When's the last time that happened to you? Maria holds her stare, glares so hard I think the glass might crack. Then she smiles. Tanya pats her on the back and we all get back to normal. I do my finishing touches, smudging eyes to look a bit pissed and backcombing hair to look like I just got kissed against a wall, which never seems to happen to me anymore. One spray of Dior and I'm out the door and into the soft lighted scene of scented flesh and azure clouds of dry ice above emerald lasers. The credit card machines gleam in the corners and I feel so excited because it's like a treasure chest if you can open it. I sit on one of the leather stools facing the stage, order a fruit punch and dangle, looking attractively drunk, waiting for a punter to come take the bait. Instead, as soon as I turn my head, a young girl who's worked here near on a year leans close to my ear so I can hear her teenage voice poised with a question, though there's no question I can answer with this disaster mixtape of Now 48. No, 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 there's no, playing so loud in the background. So we move round to an empty booth, which we shouldn't do, but I pretend I'm helping her tie up the frayed black ankle ribbon on her too high, too tight shoes. Her legs are porcupined with pinpricks of orange bits, the holes where the stubble grows showing her spray tan. Her hands are small. She's got sovereigns on 3 fingers, but I don't bother to say I don't think people wore them anymore. She's got a scar on her cheek like a claw from a bear tore at her flesh, but she shows me her best side and says through lips that men here tip hundreds to have brought near their dicks, what do these lot want from me? Tell me, because I know you know, I ain't making all that much cash. In fact, I'm losing it. Don't feel nice. You've been here enough time. You got your floor worked out. You got a circuit no one can touch. You got soft eyes. She had proper soft eyes. And I wanted to reply. I wanted to say, it's not a game of rules like that, babe. You got to find your own way. But first start, try and get a real tan. Take off those rings. Bring in some diamantes, just not on your teeth. Never tell the truth. They don't want you. They want another one. And besides, they don't deserve it. Stay strong no matter who tries to stick the finger in your ass mid-dance. And don't suck the manager's cock, because that'll never stop you from having to work weekends anyway. Smile a lot. That's the top tip I can give. Smile no matter what they say. And someone your age could have them geezers eating right out your hand. But I can't. Instead, I say, why don't you leave this place? You've got a gorgeous face. You could go anywhere you wanted. This is it, you know. This is your one life, your one time to make it yours, make it right, make it something that exists for more than a stag night or a bar fight or a tight-ass CEO's birthday party. You've got to grab it now, mighty fast, because before you know it, years have passed in life. The one life you get given is shriveled, and the pinnacle of your career has been a twist on the pole, and there's a big hole where so much else could have been. And the girl leans closer. Sister, I'm all right. I'm studying creative writing at college at night right before I come here. I'm just getting some paper for me and my son before my proper time comes. The soft eyes look me up and down. But what about you? And I say, I'm due on stage now, love, but take care. I'll see you around. So that's that one. Thanks. A lot of stuff here. So this book came around 5 years later, 2016. It's how you might know me. It's a poetry book, but it is a character-based collection. So it's 4 women. They get 10 poems each. And I guess, like, they're all fictional, but they're all informed, as all fiction is, by so many people that I have met in various settings. And it really, without explicitly trying to explore particular views, really developed these characters with a sense of trying to take in all the views that I had become accustomed to hearing from not just sex workers, but also from campaigners on all different sides of the spectrum, artists, academics, activists. There's a lot of really divisive and polarised opinions around the sex industry, and some of them are like pretty ridiculous, but there are some that, you know, they don't agree with each other, but they each have some sort of merit to the thought that goes behind them and the reasons. So anyway, I just wanted to explore a more like complex version of what I felt like I'd read, which was either a very for sort of view or a very against sort of view. And I didn't feel like there was a lot that was happening in the middle of that, as much as you can be in the middle of that. And I think that what those extreme views do is like they really encourage this kind of like one-dimensional view of women, which is mostly women doing this work in the areas that I'm writing about. And from doing this, you know, obviously, ideally, you're hearing directly from these people themselves. And in the process of writing this book, there was lots of stuff happening. Radio 4 did a documentary where they got to read their poems. There was events where they would also share their writing. There's a growing number of things, theatres producing work with and by these people who it's about. So, you know, there's all this stuff that should be supported and checked out. But I think fictional representation is important as well, because it allows people to explore a large amount in a short amount of time. And so I just wanted to add something to that, really, and to allow this issue to be more than just an issue, to be the reality of the women at the centre of it, and to look at the complexity of the reasons why people do things, and that it's not always the simple things that people like it to be. So, I'm going to start with Sylvia. We've heard quite a lot about women in their 50s and over not being, I mean, I would argue, you know, in terms of like visual representation in the UK anyway, and like women over like 30 really, not being represented as having a sort of sexual side, and that when that does happen, it's like, oh wow, how groundbreaking. So Sylvia she's 62, and she's a sex worker, and no, she's definitely my favourite. And the woman who she's semi-based on, who has approved everything, even though it's not biographical at all. But yeah, she was happy with it, so I feel fine about sharing this, the fact that it was inspired by a woman I met who was 62 and was doing street-based sex work. But like I said, it is also entirely fictional. So, Sylvia. In the garage with a good client, filled up with all sorts of shit. Boxes, bricks and bricks of boxes building up to, it's all just a build-up really, isn't it? There's nothing to keep us here but the anticipation. No space in here. Why have extra space with no space in it beats me? This one won't beat me, not a chance. His hands are feathery, couldn't grip the bones of a glove. Probably why there's a Babylonian paper garden growing mould in this. When he dies, will it go to his wife? She'll sit on a mirror of her own tears, sifting through white sheets, get a paper cut, suck the blood, corner of her wedding ring, a tray of timely memories, drop fingertip to a photo she isn't in, rip it up, rip it all up, sleep, no sleep for me, not for a few hours. See who's out. See him, he's hunting for the stiletto stash, plastic, clear, full, only box here without a lid. Blue shoes give blisters, red shoes rub the bunion. I told him, oh, here we go, today's decided red, foot soaked when I get in. Look, him holding them like slabs of tyre rubber, tingling with motorway crash heat. Smile now, Sylvia, taller now, Sylvia, 3.5 minutes to go. 2 white strands in his black eyebrows, all mine are grey, but I've got a dye kit. He might be in a car when he dies. Ooh, twisting metal might make a washing line out of his membrane gross. That would be gross. He's a nice man. Well, not a bad man, not one of the bad ones, not one of the worst ones. He doesn't take 1 minute to go. There's that beach again. I will sunbathe there before I die. Really go there on a plane, not just go whenever I go. Oh, Bunyan fucking kills. Who invented pointy shoes? Asked my mum once who invented me. She said, no idea, my petal, but it must have been a very clever man. So disappointed. I wanted to have been invented by storm waves to protect them from the willy war. And that's like willy war as in like a weather thing, not like willy war, which I realise now is a bad choice of words. Anyway, taking vouchers. Thing is though, we take cash. I mean, it's always been that way. You know how people say it's always been that way? Well, what they mean is, it has always been that way. Stars studding the sodding sky, how it's always been. KFC geezer having some creepy old beard, that's how it's always been. Women getting money for men to do what they need to do so we can do what we need to do, how it's always been. Now you come along with a voucher card, telling me there's 20 quid on that for Argos, start listing all the things I can get from Argos, like I don't know what you can get from Argos, is not how it's always been. You must think you're showing brand spanking, you must think you're onto something brand spanking new here. You must think you're showing proactive innovation. But mate, let me tell you, what's always been, will be. Those stars don't start shining on sludgy seabeds just so you can swim through the night, do they? In fact, you know what? By offering me these vouchers, what you're basically saying is that this service, my highly skilled, let me add, service, is not as important to you as another life basic, like electric. Because I know you're going to ask the man in the shop to swap lecky credits for that stupid football trophy you've got stuck to your dashboard with super glue now, are you? But if I asked, what would you rather go without tonight, me or a bit of glow in your hallway? I know you'd want to get my talents and hold a candle when you get home. So, you know, priorities, mate. You've got to prioritise in this life, otherwise you just end up in the dark regardless. Talking of which, I do need a new lamp for the living room. So go on then, just this once. Thank you. There's like a lot of little poems, so you know we can do it at the end. School gates. If you want to catch a quick death, stand outside school gates smoking a cigarette. If you want to make it particularly speedy, then I'd advise making it primary school gates, where kids wear caps, shorts, blazers, ties, you know the type I mean, posh. If you realise you don't really want to die, shout at the gates. I'm older than you'll ever be, so yeah, step to me, show me what you got, bet it's less than a dead moth. I could bury you under these gates, and what would you do? Getting all ghetto on them might gain you a few months. Or alternatively, lean on the gates with fagging, enervated lips. Point out the dad that picked you up like milk last week. Say, oh, Philip, I didn't know you liked these back gates too. Watch the folded eyes divert to the microscopic, marvelling, whilst you smoke undisturbed at the gates. Grandkids running over. Day out with daughter. He's not far away, probably, my wooden death. So I want to say, I should have said, that time we went swimming in the Lido, goose pimples pointing out our mistake, nipples harder than sucked. Dragonfly vibrates above your pineapple ponytail. Aquamarine neon nudges me to tears. Nature's colours more than I can take. Bursts my heart with its necessity. This unreal blue above you. A levitating spark clenches my breath away. Makes me want to live forever. Think of the colours I've yet to live. Let me live in this Lido under chlorinated dead leaves. Freezing my tits off for as long as the world is being held. For as long as you are in front of me. Blowing ripples unaware of my God. Do some people feel like this always? You splashed me. The dragonfly had disappeared with your laugh. My cheeks soaked in pool water, washing away the other water. You took a twig from my hair to put behind your ear, smiling, dripping, brilliant. I want to say this was my life, you, in water. Forces working against us. 1, foreigners. Liberal, I am. I mean, my mum was foreign. But even I have limits. You have to admit it's getting limitless, the shit we're expected to take, because others take shit because their lives have had limitless amounts of shit. So now they get what they can, where they can. Do you think they know things we don't know? 2, images. How you might know me comes to mind every time someone says, I think I know you. I think you bloody well don't, but do you? TV, magazines, films, documentaries, mockumentaries all show me a version of me that isn't me. Not in the extreme me, just me. Pictures like that make it seem like we're greedy bitches wanting Gucci or paddling pools full of cocaine, even though I wouldn't say no to that, who would? I make my grandkids lunch for school every day. 3, porn. Because I'm old, I'll get young ones, haven't got a clue. Think they have a clue, but a clue would be to know where to look. They don't look, can't look unless it's on a screen. I like it myself sometimes, but it's not what I base my sexuality on. My sexuality is based on other people's. Yeah, I suppose that's true, even now at this big age, but I'd rather that. At least they're real people, even if I don't know the names. Other day, one said, I hope you don't have my baby. I said, love, I'm 62. He said, so? I said, you wore a condom. He said, so? I said, you only put it in my mouth. He said, so? 4, police. Safekeeping is not keeping us safe. To keep us safe would be to keep us paid well, but women's jobs don't pay well, some don't pay at all. Squat it up all night long, you can't stop what can't be stopped. If you want us to stop, there's a way. Just stop making women's jobs that don't pay well and some which don't pay at all. I'm not a victim of anything, but your system, the one you patrol, the one you plod, keep going. I'm not a criminal, he's not a criminal, move on. There's a woman over there who will never get justice, so get out of my business, get over there, stop business, being without justice. How about that? And final one from Sylvia. She's lived with it because there's other poems in here I haven't read, but she's with a long-term boyfriend, Pete, he asked her to marry him at an earlier point. Why I can't marry you? You tell me I'm a good woman, and I think I've known many good women. They've sprung from mattresses as gravel rains through windows, scratching bedside clocks. They've taken clothes off to dress another's wound, not put them on again unless it healed. They've swilled words in mouths till tumours have triumphed, still they never spat. They've cleaned arms of old men who only ever washed with belt-buckled whiskey breath. They've laid on paper in blue biro, making bricks seem as kickable as cotton wool used on eyes. They've bled tequila on dance floors to move better to the sound of never being good enough, because they never are good women. You'll find them alone in pockets of a world never tailored to fit them. You'll find them alone in rooms ornamented with faces that never come to call. You'll find them, and when you do, they will be good to you. And before you leave, you'll say, you are a good woman. And she will nod, as if it is enough to be good without being loved. So that's it from Sylvia. We move on now to Sharifa. Sharifa is Egyptian. I'm half Egyptian, so I'm allowed to do the accent, even though it's not really that good. It's okay. But they're all in London, by the way, and so she's no longer there, but we shall find out why as we go along. Even revolutionaries get horny. Men with revolutionary principles are just like men without any principles at all when it comes to sex. They want to share more, maybe, want to divulge to me the secrets of their theories, how they wish the world would spin so people like me could be free, could be so much better off. But ultimately, they will expect my clothes to disappear. They will expect flesh to be put against flesh. They will expect at least some effort from me. They will expect a nest of pleasure in eyes. They will expect an audible sign of encouragement, as do I. The difference with revolutionary men is that they will also expect a discount. As of course, I should be aware that they are fighting the system for people like me, so people like me can be free, can be so much better off. Olympic Dreams, 2012. He asks me who I'm rooting for. When he says the word rooting, he takes one hand off the wheel and pumps his fist up in the air as if knocking on a floating door. The window is open and my hair is stuck to my lip gloss. He takes my delay to mean I don't understand the question, so he elaborates. Iraq, Saudi, Egypt, Turkey, I don't know, wherever you're from. Is that who you want to win? I smile. Go, Team GB! He likes that, chuckles away for a lot longer than the phrase deserves. Stopping at the traffic lights, I want to tell him that sport is something I follow only to find the greatest concentration of stupid men in one place. That day it happened to be in London, but I'd travelled to Beijing, Toronto, Athens, Rome, Sydney. The list is long and air miles significant. But most of the time it's easy to just smile and nod, so that's what I do. He wouldn't understand how he is cloned worldwide, how his genitals are globally molded into one, how his unique perspective is mass-produced, how his empathy is a fizzy drink can in every world city, and his significance on this earth is as unremarkable as the stickiness of his semen. He would be thrown into a state of long-term confusion to hear me philosophize on how the work I do is a form of healing for humanity. I must travel to the places where I am most needed. I traffic myself in an attempt to restore harmony to the damaged species we are. That by spending time with him, a man as undeserving as most I have ever spent my time with, I allow him to heal, and by giving him this gift, those in his life benefit, and the world is a slightly better place. But mostly, if I do this work, then it means at least one less girl is being taken against her will to have a body part put inside her as she cries for her passport, her mother, her child. Telling secrets. We knew something terrible had happened. The woman who was our neighbor's sister sobbed. Our mother made her sweet tea and used the special glasses. We knew she was different. There was a rhythm to her body. The woman whispered through lips made into a Sinai sunset. Our mother listened with thorny ears, eyes darting the door. We knew secrets were being told and we weren't old enough. The woman removed her hijab. Our mother ran to close the curtains. We knew a neck should not rest so purple on shoulders. The woman lifted her chin, a world map of maroon borders. Our mother dabbed antiseptic cotton. We covered our noses. We knew that smell meant woman flesh, woman tears, woman the woman. When will my heart be seen for what it is? Our mother, a wife, is the most deluded of people, my dear. London needs love. Deciding to stay in London was easy. They need me here. It is obvious when a city is bleeding. The men of the place seep terror. It trickles through enlarged, congested pores. The women too, they call me, needing comfort, needing love, needing someone to touch them and say, it won't always be this way. The times will change and you'll be happy. You'll walk along that bridge one day, look out across the grey water and wonder why on earth you ever felt the need for the hold of a woman like me. Why you couldn't grasp your own hands, feel aqueducts of love along their lines, and somebody will ask you to move, make way for their tourist photo. Instead of wanting to grab their phone, throw it to the bitter ripples below, you will smile and say, sure, do you want me to take that for you? And last one from Sharifa. Giving evidence. Yes, I'm a feminist. Even doing what I do, and no, I don't feel I need to explain myself to you, but I will. If I don't, my existence will be rust. In my ideal utopian world, maybe bodies wouldn't be for sale. Things would be so equal that to sell sexual services would be a real choice and one which few might choose. I think on that we agree. However, it's the way we get there which becomes a little cloudy. You living like a windmill, me like the gust. To climb a mountain scaffolding, sometimes hands will bleed. Sometimes we will need to scrape stones bigger than our faces away with bitter nails because we do not all have a harness or a rope or a guide or a backpack or a compass or a thermos flask, or a stick, or a helicopter to let us know that the peak is possible. It is in existence. We can only see the rocks in front of us, must trust that if we move those, we are moving. Tali is the next one. She's the youngest of the lot. And she also, in the daytime, she works at a bakery. One day, when I worked at the bakery, you were a buff guy queuing to buy a cheese and onion pasty. I knew because your eyes became canals when you saw them in the oven, your perfect head to the side, mountainous. I stood with my blue gloves on, nails poking out, wishing for 1 second or maybe 10 that I could be invisible, watch you pay someone else for the pet yellow pasty you couldn't wait to eat. So I wouldn't have to wonder if you knew me from somewhere that wasn't here in the bakery. I stuck calling cards of me wearing fishnets in phone boxes once, trying to be more professional. My black and white pic has been up in Debenham. Shoplifter. I imagine being your girlfriend, how summary that would be. You'd pick me up in your Golf and we'd go cinema, share popcorn. I imagine being you looking at me, your new girlfriend, wondering what you did to get such a good girl, so sweet. I imagine being your daughter, waiting for the sound of your key, the little jumps my feet would make to extol your heart. I imagine being your mother, proud of the job I'd done, hoping beyond hope that you never brought home a girl like, that's £1.25, I said, and you paid. No change needed. Our fingers touched once. I almost saw we were married, but you threw me a smile that said, I know you, and I thought, do you? Period pain. Since I had a kid, the pain got worse, like a slice through the stomach.
Even if you've never had your skin sliced with a nail or a tooth or a knife or a straightened paperclip, you can still get what I mean. Think of toast. You must have sliced toast. The crunchy bits fall to the side, smeared with silver. Cut is never perfectly straight. This is a sort of like the pain in my womb, crunchy, jagged crumbs of agony. It's shedding eggs. I don't even like eggs unless they're whipped into a cake. I love cakes. Crumbs circled him that day, ate his toasted fingers on the living room floor, me too crippled with cramps to enforce the eating in the kitchen only rule. I should never have answered the door. They swept him up with their windy concern, paperwork covering his crumbs as he wailed us death. Eventually, uncurling that burnt night, I ripped up those papers, put the revealed crumbs to my lips, licked them one by one until there was nothing left of him. No cries, no kisses, no mess, no soft-faced sun, just period pains and paracetamol. Admitting you are an addict. That day was too dry for the man paying in drugs to enter me. My mouth too, quarried, chalk valley, tunnel, dust, fall, saliva for fingers to add lubrication not be possible. He, disgusted, pulled, I, desperate, pushed, squeaking onto him, climbing, rope, chafe, could not let little liquid lack ruin this deal. I soldiered on, sandpaper, onion, salt, transform, mud prints, pant real happiness. He was able to get where I needed him to get what I needed. Dropped home by a hitman. Have you ever really killed anyone? I asked, de-straddling his lap. The car seats were heated, windows 1/4 down. He lit a cigarette, blew a grin away from me. People talk, babes, you know where it is. I did. Fingers fiddled with knickers wedged frontways under my jeans, fingers that really wanted to stick themselves down his throat, tickle all those cold red ridges of flesh, delve past tobaccoed saliva, blue flames of leftovers, nails nestling into the tip of a heart, feel it throb against cuticles, dent it, puncture with gel nail polish, then withdraw, hold up the paint I'd picked, an expected palette. You have a real heart, it beats against these very fingertips, look. Instead, he flicks the cigarette out the window, closes it, blows onto it, draws an X into it, laughs. We all got to do what we got to do, innit, babes? The X fades to the colour of the street outside. I get my keys out. Agree. And the last character, Sabrina, I'm just going to do... I'm just going to do one poem from her. I know what you want more than my body. You want me to say it's what I want to do. You want me to love it so that it takes me nearer to loving you. I say, this is what I want to do. I say, I love falling in love every night as I am with you. So that's that book. Thank you. I'm going to read... a little bit from this book. This is Kit Duvall has been mentioned a few times during the seminar. She's in this book and she's a champion of this competition, Creative Future Literary Awards, which aims to publish underrepresented writers. And we just had some of our work in here. But this piece of work was actually written for a dance show. And this dance show was... an interpretation of Shakespeare's As You Like It. It's called Rosalind, and it really just centred on her rather than any of the other characters. So when I read this, you have to imagine there's like really extra amazing like contemporary dancers in a neon lit cube doing loads of really great moves. And so the writing was not at all the centre of the piece, but I think that it's just interesting to kind of see how different styles of writing can be used with different art forms. So Rosalind is obviously going through different gender transitions. She's she's pretending to be a man, and then she's getting like confused about maybe she would like to stay as a man, and they changed the story like slightly. So anyway, these are little excerpts that are from that. Now I am a woman, or at least a woman as you like it to be. Roses, tulips, bluebells, willow trees. I feel heartache and pain. I feel the importance of being desired again and again and again. I feel your kiss on my lips. I feel the way your eyes undress me. Make me into a forest fairy. Make me illuminate these dark shadows with all that I have. One smile, Make me stand here. Here is a space. Make me stand in it as small as possible. My feet shrunken, my steps silent, my very breath yours as you breathe for the both of us. And I'm stuck. I'm a woman now and I'm stuck. Will I be a lucky one, lucky to be in love? But surely all love is a lunacy, a madness matched only by a normality. I look down at my body and wonder, is it madness to not know whose it is anymore? And if so, is that madness a sign of a love for my own body that I've never felt before? 3. I am neither he nor she, just a person who chooses daily what to be. I feel no explanation is needed. It is what it is, so let me be. Let me be here in this space. Let me choose my face, my woman face, my man face, my beautiful, bold, brave face. Now I am a man. Take my fear in, take my salty water and stitch it up inside a sports pitch. What sort of performance is this? To try and make a mockery of a man, to tell him he cannot be who he must be in order to be someone who is alive. Why? There is beauty in bravery, there is boldness in empathy, there is woman in man and man in woman, but now in this space I can see only that I am man. The shadows of the forest provide some relief from a city that drowns me with spotlit obsessions on how well I am dressing, doing, being, going to be. Leaves don't mind if I wear a trouser suit. Tree trunks don't get offended by my short hair. Birds don't stop singing because I haven't waxed my legs. Soil is not spoiled by my unmade up face. The moon is my mirror here. Here is a space I am. And then right at the very end, now again, I am a woman. I will keep my bravery and my boldness, my beauty and my daintiness, my daring and my slyness, my sweetness and my kindness. Yes, you do not get to dress me anymore. So that's a bit of dance poetry for you. Thanks. And before I go to chat with Cortina, she's been very patient over there. And I'll read an extract from Offside, which has been spoken about a little bit, play looking at the history of women's football in the UK specifically, because it does differ across the world. Germany's history is much more positive, and the UK is pretty shameful. And the FA, the Football Association of the UK, actually banned women's football in the 1920s, and it didn't retract that ban until the 70s, and the only reason it retracted that ban was because the EU made the equality law, so it made it illegal to have this ban. And if that hadn't happened, they probably would have just kept it there for a bit longer, for as long as they could have got away with. And I think people, it's a kind of semi-known fact, but people haven't really discussed it that much in terms of how it impacted the development then of women's football as a sport in the country. And obviously they were denied 50 plus years of any kind of professional and financial investment. So we kind of looked at it from a historical point of view and then a modern point of view. And one of the characters, Lily Parr, the character that I talked about earlier, who lived with her female partner and was very open about that, and also was the first woman footballer in the Hall of Fame. This is her kind of as a teenager just after the First World War. And the men have come back from war, and she's just heard the announcement. So, obviously this is a play for multiple people, and I'm just doing it all. So again, forgive the accents. And also it's co-written with Holly McNeish, so just to get in there.
Football is unsuitable for women's bodies. Complaints have been made as to football being played by women, and the council feel impelled to express their strong opinion that the game is quite unsuitable for females and ought not to be encouraged. Women footballers are, from this point on, for the foreseeable future, therefore banned from all FA-affiliated grounds in order to protect the female body.
So we're locked out the game, our dads are locked out the minds, and our wee brothers are locked out their bloody minds. I hear him, thin walls, my little brother George, extra washing every Sunday since he come back from the war, scrubbing, rinsing, plunging out those bed stains of his.
Lily, put your back into it, love. We don't want him to feel bad. He's done this country a great service.
All those stains, all that scrubbing. I wonder if the FA will declare us unfit for that work and all.
The FA has ruled that pummeling sheets is quite unsuitable for women's bodies, that these and all other household duties ought not to be encouraged, and that women and their daughters are not, from this point on,
allowed to do any scrubbing, rubbing, polishing, pummeling, staring, brushing, mopping and scouring, or chasing of chickens, or working in factory lines not suitable for these weedy women. Enter lots of people. Weedy women. Weedy women washing clothes, weedy women washing clothes and scrubbing, pummeling the sheets. Weedy women washing clothes and scrubbing, pummeling the sheets. Steeped in water, drenched and heavy, wetting, sobbing, sweating brows. Weedy women sweating brows. Weedy women turning round to wring the washing. Weedy women sweating, pummel, sobbing sheets on stones in metal pots. Weedy women pummeling the washing, wet with hard fist chops. Weedy women muscles punching soap in folds of sheets, like beating yeast in baking bread. Weedy women baking bread. Weedy women punching, pushing, pulling, wringing, rinsing sheets, punching yeast. Weedy women wringing, drying, pushing sheets through heavy rollers. Weedy women rocking kids. Weedy women striding streets. Push chairs, hoping babies sleep. Weedy women rocking babies 4 a.m. in nighttime feeds. Weedy women breaking backs. Weedy women mothers, daughters cooking Sunday lunch. Weedy women punching breads. Weedy women making beds. Weedy women chopping veg. Weedy women stirring soup. Weedy women hanging sheets. Weedy women making tea. Weedy women chopping meat. Weedy women flattening meat chops. Weedy women stirring hot pots. Weedy women, younger daughters holding pigs to cut in slaughter, boiling blood in pudding pots, striding shops with shopping trolleys, kids on top. Weedy women back at home bashing yeast into dough, rolling sheets, rolling pastry, kid on breast, meat on stove. Weedy women rocking baby, beating yeast, folding sheets, chasing kids down the street. Dinner's ready. Weedy women's muscles heavy. Serve the meal, feed the baby, make the beds, wash the plates, make the bed, sleep, up again. What a weedy woman. Thank you. I'll go over here.
Let you get your breath back a minute. I was really struck actually by that, the sort of directive that women were being prevented from using playing at all on FA grounds because it was unsuitable for them. And it's a classic thing of sort of, well, we're only doing it for your own good. Yeah. And the contrast between, as you've done, what women are expected to do without anybody saying, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing all of this. It's sort of, I loved it. And the play as a whole, I loved. I just wondered, I'd be really interested to hear a bit about just how you came to be a writer, because you studied English and classics, was it, at university? But then it sort of took a bit of an unexpected direction, I think. So just a little bit about how you sort of came to be the writer, and again, not a typical writer in a sense, insofar as there is a typical writer, but a little bit about that, perhaps.
Yeah, so I did English literature and classics at King's College in London, so it was quite a posh setting at that time. I don't know what it's like now for those subjects. And actually, I wanted to be an archaeologist, so I did classical archaeology for a year, and I was really bad at it, like really bad. I just had no idea how sort of scientific it was, and I was like, yeah, this isn't going to happen. So my professor was really kind, and he said, like, why don't you just keep the classics side of it, but then do English literature as well, because that seems to be a strong point. So I was like, okay. So it was weird, because I didn't even sort of pursue it actively in that way. Anyway, so yeah, because it was so posh, I think like a lot of people have been saying in terms of that working class feeling of like being an imposter or not feeling confident in the spaces that you're in, it just felt like a totally unreal world for me to even think that anything was going to happen within. So I never thought I was going to be a writer, but I really got into this series called, oh my gosh, what was it called? It changed my life. It was a J.J. Abrams series, and Jennifer Garner was like a double agent. Who knows what it's called? Alias! Yeah! I just loved it so much, and I thought, I'm going to be Jennifer Garner, running on rooftops, like sorting out the bad guys, but also kind of working for the bad guys. So literally, that TV show prompted me to go and decide to study international politics and diplomacy at SOAS. But then getting to SOAS was like such a much more open, like so many people from much different backgrounds. So I felt much more confident there. And weirdly thought, okay, politics is something that's much more open to me than writing. The literature world felt hundreds of times more posh than the world of government, which is weird. And yeah, so then I did that course. I got onto the government fast stream scheme. I was like, wanted to also be in policy and also wanted to be in intelligence, and I was kind of just moving between those. The fast stream scheme is like a government graduate scheme where you get to, for 5 years, you get really intense training, and then you get to a senior position. That would usually take like 15 years, so it's very intense, but really great training. But because I'm Egyptian and had an Egyptian passport, that was a problem in terms of security clearance and stuff, and I didn't want to give that up for various reasons. So I had to take a break and decide what I wanted to do, and in that time I went to South Bank Centre, which is a huge arts centre in central London, and I just happened to see this show that was happening for free with some really young performers doing what I now know to be performance poetry, but I had not seen or heard before. And that was it, really. I was like, wow, that's what I want to do. And so I was working in nightclubs by that time, not strip clubs anymore. I was in nightclubs in Mayfair, which was like, ridiculous money. So I could work Thursday, Friday, Saturday night and make enough money to then do my writing and gigging during the week, which was obviously a luxury that a lot of people don't have. And yeah, so then I was doing lots of character-based poetry. People started saying, why don't you do theatre? So then I joined some writers' courses for theatre, ended up doing that. And then everything just rolls on from there. So yeah, it was a bit weird, but I think everyone's journey into writing is so unexpected, it seems.
I mean, we're focusing here, and you've been focusing the work that you've chosen to read very much around gender and particularly about women's positions. But I just wondered we'll come back to that, but where that fits in your total work. Is that the sort of focus which is interesting, I think, or that we've been seeing around particular groups of women? I mean, You've read something from your work of work with people who work in the sex industry, a little bit about women's football. There's something coming up, I think, to talk a bit more about Muslim women writers. But is that the main part of your writing, or do you write in other areas as well? Or is that sort of focus on women's lives key to you, or is it? I mean, it's clearly important, but is it a part of a broader range of work?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think when I did my first play, it was a short play, but the main character was a guy, and nobody pointed it out to me, and it wasn't until I was watching it in the audience, and the actor was amazing, and then there was this female actress on stage, basically just like with the crappiest role ever, just laughing at everything that he said. And I was like, what have I done? Like, this is horrendous. And so from that point on, I just thought, I'm just not writing any male characters. I'm just not going to do it. Because I'd talked myself into, like, not even talked myself into, I subconsciously just assumed that I knew male characters better than I knew female characters, because in a sort of script world, that is what I think novels are much more, you get a lot more female representation in terms of characters, complex characters, but on stage and on screen, the sort of stuff I was watching anyway, it was usually men that were the protagonists. So I'd kind of replicated that, and then I just thought I have to take an action to make sure I don't do that ever again. And so from that point on, yeah, it became really important to me, but it also became like, it's one of those cycles where what you do becomes what other people ask you to do, which you just go and keep doing, and that builds on each other like that. But yeah, I mean, women are always a focus for me.
The work that ultimately ended up with this, with the four voices that you, Sylvia and Talia and Sharifa and Darina, that came out of that work. You talked earlier about the notes that you get, this vision of the waitress and the corset sort of keeping notes on interesting things that were going on your order pad. Luckily, obviously, they didn't need to keep copies of the order pad. But that process, what then led you into doing workshops with people? Was that what happened, that you started doing workshop with women working in that different aspects of the industry?
The sex industry is so vast and so much seeps into each other. So I knew lots of women who were working in strip clubs but were also doing other kinds of sex work, like pornography or nobody in the strip club was doing street-based prostitution, like as a category of sex work, but they would be escorts or something like that. So I was always kind of talking to people about it and encouraging. I actually did like a little anthology, like totally unofficial and like printed on paper and stapled together, of like writing from that time. Of women who I just spoke to and like encouraged to write poems about it and put it all together and stuff like that. So it's kind of just always been what I was interested in a non-official capacity, I guess. And then a company who'd heard my work was doing a project with women who were actually trying to leave the sex work that they were doing, and they asked me to be part of these workshops to get them to write about what they would like to do in the rest of their lives. And so those women also formed part of that research and part of the people that I spoke to.
Was there anything that surprised you in that process of talking to them and working with them?
I mean, nothing really surprises me. Like, I just everything's always really interesting, but I don't know about surprising. My life has been so crazy. I don't know that I could actually find something that's surprising apart from when it is around hate. Like, I find it surprising all the time that there can be so much hatred towards different groups of people for no reason. But other than that, no. Like, I guess they surprised themselves. Like, there was a woman who came in and kind of, I can't write, I haven't written since school, and now I'm like in my 50s, and I knew that she would end up writing, but she would just like thought that she wouldn't, because I thought otherwise you wouldn't come. Like, you wouldn't come to a writing workshop unless you wanted to write. And obviously by the end of the course, and she had written like half a murder mystery book on her lined paper in a plastic vial, and I was like, so, you know, like, it was more about them surprising themselves, I think, than me. So that was good.
Moving on to football.
Yeah.
It's been interesting in the UK, certainly, that we've seen in the last few years a real raise in interest, I think, in women's football. But it came late to the game, and late to the UK's come late to that interest, I think, and it certainly seemed to develop much more in the States first. I think, am I right that the Professional Footballers Association, did they provide help or something in the process of doing offside? Were they involved? Did you you collaborated with Holly McNish on the project?
Yeah,
I think.
Holly
Did you engage with footballers or with contemporary footballers?
Yeah, like football players, but not the FA.
I didn't mean the FA. I meant
the professional footballers. Yeah, we interviewed loads. It wasn't my idea. It was the idea of the company, Futures Theatre. Caroline Bryant, the director there, it was her idea. So it was very much a commission of like, we want to do this. Will you help us with it? Because I hate football. Like, generally, no, like
still, even after writing the book,
like, I really don't like football. Don't really like sports in general. Like, competitiveness for me is not exciting. Like, I just don't find it very exciting. I just feel like everyone do their thing and enjoy it, like winning something. It's just never been a draw for me. So I can't really understand the sort of passion that people feel about sport, like, at all. So it was quite a challenge to try and imbue that in myself for this play. But Holly, which is why I asked her to get involved, loves football and has played football like her whole life. So that kind of helped on that side of things. But yeah, the female footballers, like, speaking to them, it was really upsetting. Like, they were, they spent their whole life training for this. They play for a top team in the men's game, is like the Premier League, and yet they have to work like 2 or 3 jobs. who are like teaching assistants, secretaries, doing all these other jobs, and then training in the evening and the weekend. Like, it was just, I just had no idea that it was that bad. And there was only one team, which was Man City, who actually pay their players properly. I think it's like people are obviously realising they need to do that, but it's pretty slow. So yeah.
It amazed me, actually. I live very close to the Arsenal football ground, and it amazed me to find that the women never play on the Arsenal ground.
Yeah, that as well. Yeah, they always have to go to like really far out places to play and to practice. Again, Man City have sort of set the standard to aim for in that the women's team play on the ground. They have the same facilities because the women's teams in other clubs, they don't even get medical care attention, they don't get physiotherapists, they don't get like changing rooms. Like, it's just, I mean, it's just horrible.
And now the big discussion is that the new manager of the women's football team is a, albeit well-known, male football player who actually hasn't got any experience of managing any sort of team, let alone a national team.
Oh, I didn't know that. So after I finished writing it, I was like, no more football for me.
Could we move on to this book, which is The Things I Would Tell You?
Let's do that. Does that mean, shall I go and read?
Do you want to talk a little bit about it first? And
okay,
then
yeah.
Just explain. So this came out in 2017. It's a collection of writing that Sabrina commissioned, edited. Perhaps you could just give a little bit of context as to why you decided this was needed and what the process was.
I think, okay. I was just going to read from the introduction because, like,
okay.
I'm so rubbish at doing this thing.
All right.
Like talking. So it's better if it's written down, I'll just read it and it's okay.
Okay.
Right. But briefly, there's 22 women in this book who all have Muslim and British heritage, self-identifying as. And I got them all together. And there's a whole range of different styles: poetry, prose, memoir, plays, and I'll see what else comes up in the introduction, and if it's not there, I'll add it in. I felt upset and angered by the misrepresentations I encountered constantly, and I felt grateful when a clear-eyed truth was spoken about us, and then again, who was us? And so the question is asked by Ardef Suef in Mezzatera in relation to being a Muslim living in the West. Who was us? It is a question that's prompted the creation of this book. At the time of writing, this question is one that a person of Muslim heritage living in the West cannot possibly ignore, even if they hadn't previously given it much thought. Our media is deluged by stories about Muslim extremists, Muslim moderates condemning the actions of Muslim extremists, non-Muslims bemoaning the fact that not enough moderate Muslims are condemning the actions of extremist Muslims, the possibilities of your Muslim next door becoming radicalised, perhaps even at their local primary school. This coverage has now been compounded by post-Brexit reports of a catastrophic rise in Islamophobic attacks across Britain, the majority of which have been targeted at women. In the face of such genuine cause for fear, it seems difficult to employ the arts in a truly effective and empowering way. However, one of the aims of this anthology is to dispel a narrow image of what a Muslim woman, particularly a British Muslim woman, looks and lives like. All of the contributors in this book identify as having both a British and a Muslim background or association, regardless of their birthplace, citizenship status or religiosity. And there's like really, I won't read the rest of it, but there's really famous writers in here, people such as Kamila Shamsi, Imtiaz Dhaka, Layla Abu Layla, Hanan al-Sheikh. So I'm not going to read from their pieces because, I'm sure everyone knows their work and it's wonderful. But I'm going to read from some of the lesser known pieces in here, just as a little mega mix, Muslim mega mix, of stuff, just to get, so you get an idea. So Shemen Suleiman, who's a poet and a writer, she wrote a book, a story called Us, and I'm just going to read a little extract of it. Why are you even here, terrorist bitch? He shook her arm. The carrier bag split wider. A lemon fell from it and rolled onto the road.
Fuck off back home and stop killing us. Us. She had heard this word so much. Us did not come alone. Us was paired with they. They are uncivilized. They are brutal. They are savage. They had accomplices, them and those. What did I tell you about those people? You know you can't trust them. This wasn't racism, no, it was self-preservation. No one was going to die because political correctness had spiraled into madness, and if that meant hurting someone's feelings in order to be vigilant at an airport or train station, supermarket or road, then so be it. Please. The open palm pushed into her back. She caught her breath. The bags dropped spinning into traffic. On her knees, she felt the grit rub against her skin. It stung. Fuck jihad. Islam is a cancer. Brown Oxford shoes stepped past, heels clicked against pavement, hands in pockets that searched for warmth. Mediha collected what she could, fruit, butter, meat that hadn't travelled far. She walked slowly. Yes, she was fine, she insisted to passers-by. She closed her front door and locked it, spent a moment longer than she was used to with her back against it. Shireen was home, music on. Her daughter's voice became louder as she sang along. Mum, is that you? Us and them. She thought on these words. Her daughter was both, but that wouldn't matter to them. That word again, us and them, peace and terror, right and wrong. Questions philosophers had centuries over been unable to answer, and yet now everyone seemed to be so sure they knew. I am sorry. She said these words into the house, allowed them to find corners of cabinets to rest on, the photo frames, let them slow a moment over the cushions and the toaster and the rug. I am sorry. I am sorry for keeping you here. I am sorry you are not safe. Mum! This is what it was to be afraid. I'm coming, my child. And then there is a article, I guess it would be called, an article, by Triska Hamid, who's a British Kurdish journalist, about Islamic Tinder. We've heard a lot about Tinder. There is a Muslim version. It's called Minder. And Triska sort of delves into this a little bit. I'm just going to read the little bit of the first thing. A civil servant, an international lawyer, and an entrepreneur walk into a cafe. All three of these individuals are attractive young Muslim women from London. The only joke is the state of their love lives. Like many other successful Muslim women in the West, they're single, struggling to find a man to marry, and increasingly treated as failures by their communities as they creep over into their 30s. Muslim women are a disappointment, says Amira, the lawyer. They're not as accomplished, and there tend to be fewer men of the same academic level and career success. I've yet to meet someone from my community who has been better than me. This may seem like an arrogant statement to make, but it's a sentiment shared by many Muslim men. By many Muslim men, these women claim, want a submissive wife, one who will not compete with them and make them feel emasculated. We've evolved into this new genre of women that our communities haven't adapted to, says Noura, the civil servant. Those belonging to this genre are mostly Oxbridge or Ivy League educated, or both, independent, too independent for arranged marriages, financially stable and well-travelled, but also religious. The delicate balance they've cultivated between their Muslim and Western identities is a source of personal pride, but in reality they're pariahs, far too outspoken for their ethnic side and too prudish and traditional for the West. And so with Minder, basically, you do the same thing, you swipe right or left, but it allows you to filter with like race, ethnicity, and level of religiosity. So make your own mind up about that one. And often the dates, not all the time, but sometimes the dates are chaperoned as well. So Nafisa Hamid is a young poet who I worked with before. This was the first time she was published, and this is her piece. This body is woman. One. This body is woman, grown woman, doesn't wet the bed anymore, mother, woman, ready to baby woman, will not fetch her brother his drink woman. This body is touched like woman, this mouth is all woman with its no thank yous and dryness and gobbled up greed dreams of wanting to write about being woman. Two, she says, I am sex tonight. Really, you are, can't you see? Looking down, I see my breasts plump and hairless, flung out of my sex dress like sleeping strays. I know this body is woman, this body is power. 3. My little sister is 10. When we leave the house, my mother says to her, put on a longer dress. My father says, where is her scarf? Where is your scarf, girl? They're getting her ready to woman when her woman body is still curled up, fetal, like let me sleep forever. Her belly and cheeks plump with girl, with reading Jacqueline Wilson and experimented with the neon pink free lipstick from Girl magazine. She is not ready to woman, with her cherry-peaked breastlets, her ears unpierced, unsexed. I do not want her to ever woman. She is already looking for the power of woman, and my parents are already telling her that woman needs no power, has no power. When she was born, they were telling me the same. My body is no place for man, no place for me to woman, like real woman. That goes on for a while. And then Seema Begum, she was 14. So I was doing, like I've said quite a few times, I do lots of workshops in schools. I was working in a school in Tower Hamlets in East London, and as part of this exercise on like writing about identity, because that's what you're usually commissioned to ask them to do, Seema at 14 wrote this poem that was like, it's a really long poem, so I'll only read a bit of it, but was pretty astounding, especially seeing as the teachers told me that, oh, she's the quietest one in the class, you won't get her to speak, like she won't do her performance. And then she just got up and did this thing, and the whole department came and watched her. They ended up recording it for Radio 4, an actor read it out, you know, so it was published in here, and then it was in the paper, and like, so it was amazing, because her background was very, very strict, and there was obviously negotiation with parental consent of allowing her to be published in this book, and even that process itself, that conversation that had to happen, made this book worthwhile to me, that happened. Anyway, tick tock, 4 seconds, a person is going to die. Tell me, what must I do? I'm told to dream, but I'm limited, must have manners and be disciplined, can't have an ambition and stay committed, being higher than a man is prohibited, sit neatly, be quiet and not spirited, get married and stay typical. The art of a woman is no excuse to limit her potential. Don't tell me I need a man to be complete. Don't tell me marriage is the purpose of my life. Oh, man of my life, must I stand before you with a beautiful gown and lower my gaze? Must I stand under the great sky in solitude and silence and curtsy before you? No. I'm a girl who'll save endless lives, bring endless happiness, inspire endless people and protect endless innocence, challenge endless stereotypes and be a leader with endless humanity. If men don't understand the significance of women, uomino quadrano, men will fall and ladies, we will rise. Tick tock, 4 seconds, a person is going to survive. So cute. That. Just a couple really short ones. Aisha Mirza, she wrote this essay in here about staying alive through Brexit. She lives in New York. She was writing about being in New York and hearing about Brexit whilst there and how that affected her. We can talk to the Leave voters all we want, and we can blame old people if it makes us feel good, but they are not the people in charge now or in the future. They did not create this, and this does not serve them. I'm lucky enough to have experienced higher education among the elite, the artistic and political leaders of tomorrow. They are scary. They think their white liberalism is flawless. They pretend to listen, but they do not hear a thing. They use our bodies and our stories. They hold us tight in photographs, and they pretend they can't see us when we finally collapse, just like their daddies did. They put our heads on sticks and call it multiculturalism. They are the kind of people who will read this and think I am talking about someone else. We will talk right after we have dragged the UK's legacy of violence from under its ugly, expensive carpet, after we have learned it, taught it, remembered it, accepted it as an explanation for everything we see. We can talk after we have taught our children mental and physical self-defence. We can talk after we have spoken to each other about mental health, survival, and the anti-blackness we perpetuate within our own communities of colour, oppressing black people in a space they should be safe. We have lots to talk about. If only middle-class white people would stop talking. And then I'm going to end with a little play, extract from my play, Battleface, which is about a British Iraqi cosmetic surgeon, facial rejuvenation specialist, being recruited by MI. Well, it turned out MI6 at the back here. So, we want you to run a clinic, just like this one, but in Baghdad. I don't want to run a clinic in Baghdad. You'll be in stratospheric demand, the best Botox doctor in London, and half Iraqi. Perfect. Again, slowly, I don't want to run a clinic in Baghdad. I'm very happy in Shepherd's Bush, thanks. As you know, clients talk when they have treatments. They're nervous, it's intimate, they talk. ISIS have a stronghold there in Iraq, and Camilla, I get it. You want me to spy for you, for Her Majesty's government. We want you to provide the unrivaled service and skills you do here, whilst encouraging those who come to see you to let you into their personal lives a little. Their personal lives, and details of planned suicide attacks they might just blurt out in the middle of me injecting their epidermis. Nobody else can do this. How do you know? We run a training centre out there, 200 students per year, the best teachers, and still not a training centre for spies who can do Botox, a training centre for cosmetic surgery and aesthetic treatments. An official cosmetic training centre run by British intelligence in Iraq. It's run by a Quango, of course, there's no official link to intelligence, but it's no secret that the UK government supports it. I've never heard of it. Cosmetic surgery is an important industry in a post-conflict locality. Post-conflict? Well, officially, look, we encourage anything that subverts the political rhetoric and the idea that women should cover themselves. We want them to feel free whilst spying on them. We only want to know more about certain women, not average citizens. What you said, it shows how nothing's changed. Meaning? The level of knowledge you have of Iraqi life after all this time, it's superficial and insufficient. Women can get their noses hacked away and their faces frozen to the ice age, but they'll stay covered, and if they don't, that doesn't make them more free. You must know that. We don't have the data. God, don't need data, Camilla, you just need eyes. We need your eyes. And that's that from there, the things I tell you.
It very much interests me reading this, actually, and thinking about the audience for it, that, it's called The Things I Would Tell You, which I know is a quote, but there's a sense of its being outward-facing, the Muslim community talking to a non-Muslim community. But I think at some point you said that actually what you felt was equally important was providing role models for Muslims, particularly Muslim women, who want to write, of seeing writing by other Muslim women in print. That's correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that I do think that anyone who's British but who's not white British, whatever they write is considered to be a kind of explanation for the people that aren't like them. In theatre, that's a massive thing. I suspect it is in all of the arts. Constantly asked, even if you write working class characters, it's almost like, oh, this is a explanation of like working class life for those of us who aren't working class, which kind of, because white middle classes do believe that they are like the main consumers of all art. So actually, the things I would tell you is a quote from the title of a poem by Hibak Osman, who's in here, and it was a poem to her brother who died, and it was the things that she was telling her brother. And so I chose it from that and didn't actually realise that connotation straight away, because it genuinely was the main impetus for it was going to these workshops and having girls constantly ask me, who are some like Muslim poets that you can tell us about? Like, where are the girls on YouTube who are Muslim, like who might have similar background to me, who are doing this? I need that, I need to see that, I need to know it's possible. So I just thought, let's gather these in one place and show them that not only is it possible, but that there's these huge names, people who you've probably heard of, but that you don't necessarily associate with a Muslim identity, because, I don't know, they might just not, because they look different to them. The UK has got a real problem with like representation of a Muslim identity. It's very much like one culture, and that's mainly South Asian, and anyone outside of that is not considered to look Muslim. It's different in the rest of Europe, obviously, because of different colonial histories and different patterns of immigration. But in the UK, that's what it's currently like. So it was also, for my own sake, as somebody from Middle Eastern origin, of wanting to be able to bring together people that I knew who were from the area of the world that I was from as well, to kind of say, like, we all share this kind of cultural heritage, and we should embrace it right now because there's loads of other people out there negatively portraying it. So you've got to try and balance that somehow. So it was kind of a mix. It was like for an outside audience, but also for an inside audience too.
Great. Now I think we've got time for some questions. If you'd like to put your hands up. There's a lady here in the second row. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the reading and talk. So I want to ask about the working process. So I was really impressed by this character-based poem. Honestly, I never heard of it. I heard of it for the first time here. I really like it. So how do you write this kind of poem? So do you first build characters and then let them talk in your head? Or it's the other way around? Or which way? And then, although there are 4 different fictional characters, but probably there's still pieces of you in each woman. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I'm sure lots of writers feel the same way. It's like a bit of a. Actually, I did hear. I can't remember who it was. Maybe Kerry. A sort of possession like overtakes me. Like I don't do much planning and I don't do much delving. They're just kind of there. Like I just have to decide what it is that I want to do, like the project about, or they decide for me. I don't know, that sounds so like ridiculous, but it's literally like they're just there. They're just there and then you just write them. And I don't know why or how, like I've never done, I do writing exercises like a free write or like some prompts to try and get me to think a bit more imaginatively about where this character could go. But I don't ever do like a breakdown of the character. I never ever say like my character is this age, this is where they live, this is like who their parents were. I never ever do that. They're just sort of there. And I might discover those things as I go along, if they are important to the story or not. Most of the time they're not for me. And I don't care, like, ethnically where they're from, unless it is, again, important to the story and where they've come from. I don't, it's just, yeah, it's just, I don't know where they come from. Weird. I think, like, having family from all around the world and working in lots of different areas, different industries and stuff also, like, helps because you're just meeting such distinct, different people all the time. They sort of lodge themselves in your head a little bit as well, I guess.
Other questions? There's one just up there on the right-hand side. Thanks.
Thanks. I thought that was really impressive. Thank you. I think these characters are really interesting, and I'd just be interested, do you think, are there some characters that go away once you've put them on the page, and others that like have more to say to you and you feel you've got a lot more to write about them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So a lot of characters start off in poems and then end up in plays. And the characters from this poetry book, they actually started off in a poem, which then evolved into the TV show that didn't happen. So that then evolved into this book, which I do feel like Sylvia was then going to be part of a theatre piece that I was going to do, but I just didn't end up doing it. So yeah, like some of them just continue on. Others, like I definitely am like finished with them. Like once it's done, I'm like, oh my gosh, I never want to see you again. Which is actually much more satisfying because it feels like, well, you've done the job that you wanted to do. But with the others, it's like, oh no, I didn't say that stuff and she didn't get to do this and I really want her to do that. So yeah, they sort of pop up. But the great thing about working in different mediums is that you can do that. So, you can just decide that, oh yeah, that character, I'm going to write an opera about her now. And, it just gets a whole new lease of life and new interpretation and everything. So, yeah, it is quite interesting. And there is actually, in my mind, there is a play that I wrote in 2013, I think, of 3 characters. And all 3 of them, like, I wish I had time to do a whole other thing about them because I love them. So, yeah, they stayed really close to me for some reason.
Can I just pop in a second question about poetry? I write prose fiction, and I know when I do reading, I have a reading copy of my novels, and I often change what I've already written when I'm reading it out, because it's like I've thought, oh, I could do that better. Do you ever do that as a poet, or is it like it's fixed then? Because you can't do it as a playwright, because obviously someone else is saying the words, so you can't change it afterwards. But do you ever do that?
Yeah, all the time. Like I do it. I did it today because like in one of the poems I say like the KFC geezer is some creepy old tash, and then I realised like the KFC geezer actually never had a tash, he's got a beard. So there's like practical things like that you can edit as you go along, because you're doing it live, so it's quite good. But there are certain things that if it's a poem that I've written with the page in mind, then reading it out I will change things in order to make it more performative. And the other way round, like if there's a performative poem but I feel like I'm in a space where it's like very like reading, I'll like tone it down by like taking certain words out. So yeah, I like edit all the time, and I think that when you start your career as on stage, that just comes really naturally, because you start like editing your work on stage, because until you say it to a room full of people that don't know you, you can never really feel like exactly where you've got it wrong. And that's still true with plays. When I hear actors saying the words in the rehearsal, when it's a rehearsal in which there's a little audience, the edits that happen are like instantaneous and massive. I'm like, just cut out that whole scene, it doesn't work. But we've been doing rehearsal for 2 weeks and I haven't known that until I've seen it in front of other people. So yeah, it's a really important way of how I edit.
Thanks.
Can I ask just, do you start knowing what medium you're going to write in, or does it decide itself? What's that process?
Yeah, there's a bit of both. Like now that I've started doing a bit of screenwriting, it's quite hard because everything's so visual that it then becomes like, oh, well, that should be for TV or that should be for film. So that's kind of like started to happen much more. But prior to that, I usually felt like I knew if this was small enough for a poem or if it needed to be expanded a bit more, and I'd think of it as a play. Or if it was like something that I didn't feel that I wanted to really delve into, but I knew someone else who would, like a dancer or a musician, then it would be like, oh, this could be a collaborative thing where they really go into it and I just add a little bit of like decoration around it, but it's not going to be my project. So that happens as well. Yeah, so a bit of both.
We've got time for one more question. One more question? Just there in the middle. Thank you.
Hello. So when you have actors cast in your plays, like how involved are you with the casting process? And do you have situations sometimes where the actor playing the role is just not how you'd imagine the character? And if so, how do you kind of reconcile yourself to that?
To accept them. No, I like demand that they're fired. No, I don't. I think like the traditional playwright role in the UK is that they are very involved in all aspects of the process and production, and that they'll be there during rehearsal, etc. And I'm not sure if it's just because I've had a small child and I've been poor and I've had lots of different mediums to write in, but that's never been my experience. I'm kind of like, I've written it, it's there, cheers, good luck, I'll be there on opening night, maybe. So that's quite rare, actually, to be like that, and it really frustrates a lot of people, and I know that it frustrates them, but they're really diplomatic about telling me, but it's still obvious. But I just feel like, you know, I'll do the edits, and I'll definitely go to at least one rehearsal and kind of see how it's going and make edits, but for me, it's like all my work, my body of work in general, is very much like a notebook. So I'm just like, this is it, this is how I feel right now about this thing. You take it, do your magic with it, and I'll watch it and be like, wow, you did all of that with it, and I didn't even know it had that in it, so that's amazing, well done. And I really feel like a sharing, collaborative way about it. I don't really feel possessive. If I know that I'm going to be possessive over the way a character or something should be, I'll do it myself, or I'll make it a poem. And so I think for like How You Might Know Me, I was possessive about them because they were my, like, I don't know, I didn't want anyone else to interpret how their lives were being told. But with other stuff, I'm like much more laid back about it. So I never feel like I would tell a director that the actor they think could do the role is not the right actor. I do recommend actors that I've worked with and that I like to the director for the casting of all the plays, but ultimately it's always the director and the casting director that would do that job.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much.
Thank you,
And I
Cortina.
would like to thank Sabrina Mahfouz. Thank you.
Thanks.